The moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, oh Allah, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today?
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah, and welcome to a whole new program called Back to Basics. I'm your host, Abdul Saeed, and we would like to welcome our wonderful guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed. Dr. Mamdouh, welcome. Dr. Mamdouh is a former professor at Johns Hopkins University. He's also the director of Arrow for Consulting and Training. He has worked in over 7 universities across the globe, and he travels extensively working in the field of education and dawah, as far east as Indonesia and as far west as the United States. He is currently married with 5 wonderful children, mashallah, and 11 grandchildren. Dr. Mamdouh, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be in this program.
Barakallahu feekum. The topic for today's episode is the issue of tutoring. Is it good? Is it bad? How would you feel about this issue? Or how do you feel about this issue?
I think this is the right time to select it. We are going to begin a new school year, and this is golden opportunity for parents, teachers, and schools to change, to modify their reactions towards tutoring. I know tutoring in some countries is very common, to the degree that a person who does not take any kind of tutoring is considered strange person or abnormal person, because this is not the norm. The norm in some countries that taking private lessons is essential, to the degree that in some countries now they almost cancel a whole school year. For example, in Egypt, they almost canceled the 3rd year of high school. When the student reaches 3rd year, there almost no school. Students don't go to school. Students stay at home and they don't go to school because they take private lessons, they take tutoring at home. To this level, whole school, a whole city, a whole country, this has become the norm. And this is something I don't know exactly how it is going to be recorded in history, the history of education. So it became the default of students to sit home the 3rd year in high school and to get tutoring, whether personal, which is very expensive, or in some groups. And it started with small groups. And now the number reached the level of more than the students who study in one classroom.
So basically they're privatizing their own school.
Yes. In other words, there's another kind of making this form is private schooling. There are many schools that are private. And this happens to the students who are in public schools as well as students who are in private schools. Something is upside down, yet a lot of people don't see it. This is the situation now.
And this is not just specific to Egypt. This is many countries that
I
have
just
this similar
mentioned the
problem.
country that I know,
Okay.
but I'm quite sure that it is becoming more common.
So essentially,
But it is becoming more common in some areas in the world. But this is not the case in some advanced countries. In almost every advanced countries, there is no way for tutoring to control the whole country, to control the whole system of education.
essentially, if tutoring, which is privatized classes at a person's home, even if it's in
Yeah.
a group or a large group. And then as an extension, private schools are usually a reaction to a faulty or a broken education system.
Yes, there are some faults in the education system, and that's why. And instead of dealing with the concept of differentiation, which means that how to deal with your students differently, each group of students has its own needs. And this is what happens in advanced countries. Of course, these advanced schools, they are following the IB or the British system or the American system or other systems as well. Yes, they focus on this. The lesson in the school is the norm. Only few students who
really can't
need-
get by.
Yes, we need to address their own needs. And from this perspective, yes, we do advise, first of all, so this may be the positive thing is about tutoring is that some students had their own pace, and because the schools do not offer the options or the opportunities that would give them some extra opportunities than the other students to learn more because of their weaknesses. So they have a golden opportunity in tutoring, in looking for some good teachers to educate them. This is a positive thing. There is no problem in this. But on the other hand, we have many negative things on this. We are graduating some students, and now it's becoming more students, it's becoming the majority of students in some areas, that they are totally dependent.
They can't get by without a tutor.
They cannot.
And even worse so, some schools don't have a policy that forbid the teachers from tutoring their same
We'll
students.
come to this, of
Like-
course. Yeah, but this is very negative when the students become totally dependent on others, on teachers. All the time. And you find this answer is from the, so I did not take a private lesson in this subject matter. And this means that they are supposed to take a private lesson.
They're not able to think and research on their own
Yeah.
at that point. They're always depending on
Absolutely.
somebody giving them the answers and
And when we
feeding
move
them
to,
everything.
yeah, when we move to another level, the level of teachers, when teachers give private lessons to students who are from their own, not only from their own schools, but also from their own classes at school.
Conflict of interest.
Absolutely conflict of interest. And you find as a result is what happens is that those teachers definitely they don't do a good job at their
They'll
school.
actually withhold information from their own classrooms
Some
to
of
force
them,
the students
some
to have
of them may do that.
Yeah.
But the result is that the students at school, they are not educated. They don't
Yeah.
take what they need to take. Schools were made because of this. And if the students are taking their own private lessons at home or in groups, why do we spend all this money and we pay all these taxes to the government to build these public schools
Well, that
if
goes
the
back.
students are already fed up with this?
Well, that goes back also to the issue that maybe some of these teachers are underpaid. They can't get by on the salaries that
yeah.
they're given, and so they resort to tutoring, and it's
I-
the whole
I-
system that
I
has to
see
be
this
revised.
point. I see this point, which is a very valid point. Yes, it's the right of an engineer to do an extra work. It's the right of a doctor to do an extra work. It's the right of a doctor to work in the hospital and at the same time to have a private clinic.
Yes.
Yes, where people go there. This is a legitimate right. I can do the same thing, but we just need to regulate it.
You can't have a doctor, for example, working at a government hospital, and he refuses to treat the person correctly unless they come to his private
And in the
clinic.
afternoon, yeah, it happens from very little number of people,
Yeah.
doctors, yes. And the country itself organizes this issue and regulates it
Yeah.
and puts some rules and policies for it. We want to do this. We can make it a condition. Never, ever is accepted on any level that the teacher to a specific school would teach students from the same school.
I agree. And private schools seem to have implemented that.
Yes.
But the public system is still behind.
Even
in that
private
regards.
schools, they are some sort of lenient in that. But in public schools, it happens very...
It's the norm. I would argue that it's the
If a teacher
norm.
is good, I would not allow him to teach any private lessons for the students who are in the same school.
Going back,
I leave the whole world for him to teach. Yeah, private lessons, but not the students that he teaches.
the issue that he'll see is that the whole world doesn't know he exists and
Yes.
doesn't know his teaching methods.
Yes.
So for him, it's much easier to just teach his own students and hold back some of the education in the school
Yes.
itself. So it really goes back to the teacher has to have his needs met, the school students have to have their needs met, and the system has to be revised in a way where everybody can benefit and get their needs accordingly.
Absolutely.
Maybe
I
instead
support your
of
viewpoint.
students paying private classes, some of those costs can go to improving the schools and improving the salaries of the teachers at those schools, so it can be more organized within each
Yes.
city and each district.
Absolutely. This is another way. It should be another organization.
Mhm.
And they are going to use teachers, but I don't teach private lessons. Tutoring is not, it should stop when it happens that the teacher in the same school teaches students from the same school.
Yes.
He can teach from students from any other school. This would solve the problem. So here comes the role of the administration, of the leadership of the school,
Yeah.
to organize it and to find ways to help the teacher and to help the students benefit from that, because this makes life very, very expensive for many people. And this gives
And not practical.
all advantage and all the merits to the rich students who are capable of paying the teachers when they teach them private lessons. So here comes the role of the leadership of the school and the leadership of the whole educational system.
Mhm.
So the whole country, specific country, should have a policy on that level,
Mhm.
and the school should help implement this policy, and teachers and students should implement these things. So now we gave the student his right, we gave the teacher his right, and the school now is playing a role that to watch and observe. In almost all advanced countries, they do this. We can allow cases, even this should happen in the school,
Mhm.
cases like those students who have special needs. Well, that's why they have some now teachers who work with those students with special needs.
Yeah, they have actual separate classrooms for students who are a bit late in their studies or who need special attention.
I hope that people in charge of the education system in all countries would listen to this. We know that most of them have heard this before, but we hope that we change from theory into practice. We are going to come to a new school, back to school. It will be after 1 or 2 weeks. So schools should think of this new policy to be fair to all students.
Inshallah, we hope so. And with that, we would like to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
A time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, on all who spend in good cause.
It's welcome again from me, from your host Ismail Bullock, and from your host
Gabriel Romani. The parents have to encourage their kids to get married and at the same time support them.
What many people don't understand is that seeking knowledge in itself is ibadah. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, لأن أطلب العلم ساعة أحب إلي من ألف ركعة. That I seek knowledge for an hour is better and more beloved than ألف ركعة, which means 1,000 rak'ah.
The real meaning of La ilaha illallah is not there's no God but God. لا معبود بحق إلا الله. That is, if you want to note it down, that is the real meaning of La ilaha illallah. There is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I remember as a Christian, when I was a Christian before, you know, they have this whole issue of your cross, you have to wear your cross, this will protect you, and if it breaks, something wrong will happen to you, and the icons, and put an icon in your wallet.
Bismillah. Welcome back to the program, Back to Basics, with our guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed. Dr. Mamdouh, we were discussing before the break the issue of tutoring and how it's abused in some countries and in some educational systems. Would you argue that it's overall good or bad? Would you argue that the bad outweighs the good? How would you view this?
I think it was quite obvious from the discussion that I wouldn't exaggerate if I say that it's almost more than 90% bad from many perspectives. It's unfair to people who are poor, who cannot afford it. It's a burden, huge financial burden on families who have a big number of children, or even average number of children.
Or limited income.
Or even limited income.
Yeah.
Not all the people are rich. In fact, the people who are poor are more than the people who are rich in the whole world, across the world. And the people who are rich, they already, from the very beginning, they selected private schools. They already pay and invest some money in the children, which is something good.
Yeah.
They can afford it. There's nothing. But the problem is that this kind of disease, social disease, moved to these private schools.
Yeah.
Find that tutoring is becoming day after day more common in these private schools, who are supposedly to be good school with very high quality teachers who can do this kind of differentiation in their schools, yet still the students out of jealousy of each other became part of the society, something that you cannot dispense with, although you can really dispense with. But everybody is talking about this, and in every house there are some problems about it, yet this social disease, I call it social disease, is continuing on in these countries. And I hope people would take a stand and would stop it. In the USA, when they decided to stop people from smoking in closed areas, which something was almost impossible,
which is still
40
very common
years
in
ago.
many other countries,
Yes.
Unfortunately.
40 years ago, it was impossible in the States. 30 years ago, it was impossible in the States. But now it became the norm in the USA.
And now you're looked down upon if you even try to smoke anywhere
Yes,
indoors.
even now. And this is, I think, one of the good achievements of the USA.
Yeah.
Now, and if we can do something like this in tutoring, that would be really great. We can change the perspective of people that it is something good. To the degree that it becomes something bad. I think this would be a great achievement, because many people become damaged and they get a lot of loss, and it becomes unfair. The whole system becomes unfair to the poor people, to 60% in some countries, it may be to 90% of the population don't have the rights when these things continue. And if we cannot stop it now, it becomes more problematic and it becomes chronic in the coming few years.
I think going back to what you mentioned, obviously as an issue for opportunity-wise, it's very unfair to imagine that poor people require to spend extra money when they're constrained in their expenses for having to hire a tutor because the school is lacking to even give them the basic education. Obviously, any country, even the USA, there's always going to be the business of private schools and things that are set up for the people who can afford it, and they'll always have better opportunities. But at least the most basic of opportunities still exists for those who can't afford otherwise. But the issue that I had is that you mentioned for the richer students, even in many of these countries, at the high-end private schools, they're still hiring tutors. I don't think this necessarily goes back to the quality of the school lacking, so much that, for me personally, when I was a child, I remember that my parents used to help me with my homework, to help me if I needed, they would take me to the library to do my research. People want things spoon-fed to them today. So they don't want to teach their children. They don't want to sit with their children and do their homework. Oh, I'll just hire someone. It's easier. It's less demanding. And so they outsource their actual training of their
Right.
children.
You're right. Which I don't think that there is a problem in this.
Okay.
Yes, if you have these means and if you can afford it, yes, you can do that. But the problem is when the norm becomes this way, it becomes so difficult, the life of people. The life of 90 people becomes so difficult.
Yeah.
We don't want to add more burden. We want to solve the problems of people. For example, in the West, when they have private schools, they have public schools.
Yeah, and the public schools at least offer the basics.
At least the basics, if not even something better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen that most of the good students come from here and come from here.
Yeah.
But we need, as a society, as a country, we need to be fair to all the citizens who are living in a specific country. We need to be fair to them. And this is a big step, I think, for the people who are in charge. They need to rethink and reconsider the matter. Otherwise, it may cause other problems.
Like?
It may cause some problems of like revolution from the people. They would revolt against a system because the system is unfair. And I'm quite sure when it reaches to the level of hunger, nobody can control his hunger. And when you look into, yes, people would prefer to eat food instead of going and getting tutoring for children. And this, of course, but in this way also, you are depriving those children from getting the opportunities that their colleagues and their peer groups take in other places. So I hope people would reconsider the whole situation of tutoring. The nature of human being is to be greedy. Teachers, or some of the teachers, may be greedy. Now they are becoming more greedy. And instead of teaching 1 or 2 or 3 people, they teach a whole class. And they get just for the sake of money. And to tell you the truth, in some countries, teachers' income is more than the income of doctors. We used to hear all over the world that doctors take more, they have more income than others. But now it's becoming reversed now. And when we find the teachers are getting more money than, it's normal. When we say this is normal for teachers who studied for 5 years and got training for 3 years, they spend almost 8 to 10 years in their education just in the field of medicine. But those teachers, most of them spend 4 years, or sometimes in some cases they are less than 4 years, yet even it's unfair to the doctors like this. And if I'm a doctor, I'm going to change my career. I'm going to be a teacher of biology, right? Because I can do more money. But again, on a bigger level, you find that now people are thinking deeply and focusing more on financial issues. And this would affect the rest or the other aspects of their life. Life is not all about money.
No.
A part of it may be money, yes. But the more you focus on this aspect, it becomes more materialistic. And this definitely, regardless who you are, no matter, yes, how wise person you are, yet this would be at the expense of the spiritual life.
Yes.
This would be at the expense of your relationship with your Creator, which is much, much more important than the materialistic life that you are focusing on.
Well, I obviously agree with you that material gains are not, should not be the focus of any Muslim.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about certain countries where people are living very desperate from day to day, and the cost of goods are going up. And a lot of these teachers, even the ones that are putting in decent salaries, they're not necessarily living like kings. They're still living day-to-day expenses for their own children, for their own homes, and so on. What is the solution that you would suggest for a country, for example, that's overpopulated, that's underfunded, and the classrooms are just 50, 70 students to a classroom? The teachers are getting salaries of less than, let's say, $150 American a month, and rent is going up, food is going up. How are they supposed to compensate for that?
Now you're taking me out of my field, yet I think you used some terms which are so beautifully sound to people, like overpopulated, and I myself, I think this is not a good term.
Okay.
From the Islamic perspective, you cannot say that overpopulated, because I don't know who decides.
Well, because in Islam we're encouraged to have as many children as we can.
Yes, because in Islam, we do believe that the problem is not in the big number of the people. The problem is we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them, and we know that He guaranteed that there is rizq and there is enough money for those people.
Yeah, everyone has their own provisions.
Yes.
Yes.
They should just work for them. And the role of the world now, particularly all those big organizations and international organizations, and each country would focus on the quality of education that is given to those children. Because if the quality is bad, the production is going to be bad.
Yes.
So they are not producing enough. In some countries that are advanced, one person can produce enough food for more than 10 people. So if each person can produce something good for 10 people and more, that means there is no overpopulation. People have enough provision in this world.
So the problem is with the infrastructure, the production of the country,
I think so.
the education system of the country.
Education, and that's something that we need to... The quality of education is the key word.
Yeah.
The quality of anything overrides the number. And you can see now, if I ask you this question, is it the level of the poverty? Is there enough food for the people in the world?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. So if there is enough food in the world, the problem would be a different problem. Either
distribution, the distribution of the wealth is the problem.
The distribution of wealth, this has been going on. We always confess that there will be, yes, difference between the high rich people and the low poor people. Yes, in every country, at every time, even at the time of prophets. Yes, this would happen. But at least we should guarantee a minimum for each human being. Can this be done? Yes, it can be done. Many countries have done this. So if many countries have done this, the rest of the countries can do this. So what's the difference between those countries and the other countries at the other end is what the quality of education. And this is where we need to focus ourselves.
And the willingness to work to
reform
reform that education.
Absolutely, yes. But linking this matter with the issue of tutoring, when we focus on tutoring, and many people are deprived from this. So those people who are well tutored, yes, they get high quality of education as those who get the same thing in private schools.
Yeah.
This is at the expense of those people who cannot afford it. How can we guarantee that those people who are deprived can get a good quality of education and they are poor? Can we do this? Yes. Many countries have done this.
Yes.
So I think this
takes
should be
a willingness to do it, though.
Yes.
A willingness to reform the system that exists. Yeah.
And on a personal level, each teacher should consider himself responsible for the people who are deprived.
For the trust that Allah put upon them.
You are one of the causes that made those people to be deprived of tutoring because you don't do a good job in your class.
May Allah make easier affairs, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. And with that, we'll have to stop the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, the moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, Allah, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today? I have whispered to you as I made ruku, Subhana Rabbi Aladi. But was my faith bright or grey? Oh Allah, tell me, what did I do